A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Bibi Netanyahu, the Lord is with Israel. Go ahead and do what you plan to do. But don't hold back, do it quickly, says the Lord.
This morning, a powerful strike was launched and destroyed in the heart of Tehran, the compound of the tyrant Khamenei. For 3.5 decades, this tyrant dispatched terrorism across the world, made his own people miserable, and worked constantly and tirelessly on a program to annihilate the state of Israel. That plan is there no longer, and there are many signs that this tyrant is also no longer.
But do you not understand that all you are seeing is the image of a beast who has been destroyed? That's all. The image exists. The head of the snake can be seen, but it is dead.
Shouts of joy rang from the rooftops across Tehran when Israel first announced the supreme leader was dead. It marks an abrupt end to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's 36 years in power. As the supreme leader, he was political target number one, and his private compound in Tehran was top of the target list this morning.
This is something God ordained. A massive shaking in Iran, which will reveal God's absolute displeasure with Iran and the pact that is presently taking place. And the result will be hundreds of thousands of Christians will be freed in Iran.
Welcome to Analysis. My name is Danae Clement Petrushka, and I'm so happy you were able to join us today. So we're going to be looking at some prophecies today that my dad gave about Iran over the years, and there are many, many, many of these prophecies. This that is transpiring right now goes all the way back to 1993 when we moved to the United States of America. God showed my father the beast of the East and the warriors of the new millennium who would rise up and overcome that beast. And so Christy Desfontaine is here joining me as usual. Welcome, Christy.
Hello, thank you.
And there's a lot going on. We're in a very intense moment in history, Christy. So let me know what you found is going on in the news.
Well, obviously, we are going to look at prophecy, and some of it is just absolutely staggering. But this is what we're tracking right now as the story continues to unfold. The Guardian is reporting that U.S. and Israel strike Iran as Netanyahu says many signs Khamenei is no longer alive. And then we see that breaking news confirms that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been killed in a bombing, reportedly in an attack by Israel. And this marks a major escalation in the region, obviously. It says that the situation is still unfolding and the implications for Iran, Israel, and the broader Middle East are significant. But the thing to note here is that the United States and Israel launched major coordinated strikes against Iran. Targets included the Iranian military, leadership structures, and strategic infrastructure. The supreme leader and other top officials were reportedly killed as part of this offensive. And so what we see is that on February 28th, the US and Israel initiated what they called a decisive military campaign against Iran, a campaign that reportedly resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader and key regime figures. And it marks an unprecedented escalation in decades of regional tension. And at the same time, Israel itself has come under attack. These developments in Iran mark the end of one of the most controversial and repressive chapters in modern Middle East history. For decades, the Ayatollah has ruled Iran with an iron grip, silencing dissent, crushing protest movements, and presiding over a regime that jailed, tortured, and executed those who dared to challenge its authority. Under his leadership, Thousands of Iranian citizens were imprisoned or killed for speaking out. Women have been beaten and arrested for refusing to submit to the regime's strict religious codes, and political opposition was simply systematically erased. But Khamenei's influence didn't stop inside of Iran. Internationally, his regime spent decades funding and arming militant proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, organizations responsible for attacks against Israel and violence across the region. Missiles, militias, and terror networks became the tools of Tehran's foreign policy. For Israel, Khamenei was one of its most vocal and relentless enemies, repeatedly calling for the destruction of the Jewish state, while financing terrorist groups committed to that goal. And as for the United States, particularly during the Trump administration, Iran under Khamenei became the focus of a major geopolitical standoff, with Washington confronting Tehran's nuclear ambitions, sanctions violations, and regional aggressions. So while Khamenei's rule cast a long shadow over Iran and the Middle East, today's news marks the closing of that chapter. For many observers, especially those who long for freedom inside Iran, this moment represents far more than the end of a leader. It may represent the beginning of a turning page. And the question now being asked around the world is, what happens next in Iran? Iran and its allies have responded with missile and drone strikes across the Gulf and into allied territories, including Israel. We know that at least 9 people have been killed, which is obviously very sad. Air defenses are actively engaging incoming threats. Iran hasn't remained silent. Across the Gulf, missile and drone launches have been reported, and allied nations are witnessing the ripple effects of the conflict. Defensive systems are active as this rapidly evolving situation plays out. Iranian missiles struck central Israel, including areas around Tel Aviv. Israel's air system, defense systems were activated immediately, intercepting most of the incoming projectiles, but emergency responders were still deployed to multiple impact sites as civilians were injured. And obviously, when it comes to Christians in Iran, we see that they're facing both fear and hope, because even in the midst of violence, some Iranian Christians are praying and hoping for freedom, and international ministries are reporting a fragile but growing underground church. And even amidst this conflict, there are reports of Christian believers in Iran responding with prayer and hope. A remarkable and sobering picture given decades of persecution. Charities are warning that increased violence could threaten those already in vulnerable communities, but there are also accounts of celebration and prayer for freedom. There's obviously, caution being urged, prayer, care for innocent lives that are caught in the middle of geopolitical strife situations. But the US president has urged Iranians to take control. Leadership in Washington has publicly encouraged the Iranian people to take control of their own government. President Trump has gone further, publicly urging the Iranian people themselves to take control of their nation in the wake of this conflict. And that's a strong statement meant to frame this moment not just as a strike, but as an opportunity for change. And so we see military action, retaliation, frightened citizens, but also hopeful believers. There's tension, fear, anxiety, and there's a profound spiritual question underneath it all. This isn't just geopolitical. For millions of believers, this moment feels historically significant. And this brings us back to what was spoken prophetically years ago. This is mind-blowing. So let's hear exactly what it was that Kim Clement had to say on June 3rd, 2015 from Camarillo.
He will not be stopped. He will not be silenced by these that have tried to silence them in the Middle East. So I saw these massive events being planned by God and His Holy Spirit. This preservation and the time for it is extended into the Middle East, and especially for God's people in Iran. Hear me, this is a prophetic thing, where a massive shaking is going to take place in Iran. Now, it may sound obvious. No. This is something God ordained. This is not something Obama ordained. This is not something America ordained. This is something God has ordained. A massive shaking in Iran, which will reveal God's absolute displeasure with Iran and the pact that is presently taking place. And the result will be hundreds of thousands of Christians will be freed in Iran.
These are remarkable words. A massive shaking in Iran that would ultimately result in freedom for Christians. That sounded insane when he was prophesying it, but look at where we are today. Now, when we step back and look at what is happening right now, there are several things that stand out. First, Iran is facing pressure from multiple directions. Externally, we're seeing military confrontation with Israel and the United States, missiles, retaliation, and rising regional tensions. But internally, Iran has also been under pressure for years. Protests, economic instability, and growing dissatisfaction with the regime. And we also see how the regime has long persecuted Christians. The Iranian government has historically been one of the most hostile regions towards Christianity in the Middle East. Believers have faced imprisonment, harassment, and surveillance simply for practicing their faith. But yet, despite that persecution, the underground church inside Iran continues to grow. Many ministry leaders and researchers say Iran now has one of the fastest growing underground Christian movements in the world. People are coming to faith quietly in homes, in small groups, and often in secret, which makes Kim Clement's prophecy even more striking, because he didn't just talk about a shaking in Iran. He said the result would be hundreds of thousands of Christians being free. So interestingly, again, years ago, Kim specifically addressed Iran in a prophetic message. He said something very direct. He said not to be afraid of Iran, not to be afraid of the nations. And in the same prophetic moment, he described something happening inside the United States, a shift in leadership, a shift in the tone coming from Washington. He said there would be the sound of liberty from the White House, and he said there would be a new sound released, a sound that would involve both America and Israel. So as we watch these events unfold, the pressure on Iran, the defense of Israel, and the role of the United States, it's worth listening carefully to what was spoken years ago, because this next prophetic word described both nations together. This is unbelievable. So let's go to Kim prophesying from August 29th of 2015.